Welcome to Franchise Killer, podcast where we talk about movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. All right, Joe.
I know, it's right. I know. Sounded more like the guy from Hercules.
Who were you trying to be?
I was trying to be Bill Paxton when he's like, I know her name.
No, he sounds like slightly like high, or not high. That's the wrong word. It's more just like drawn out.
That's what it is, Joe.
Like his voice is like slower but deliberate. Like it's like
yours was a little too frantic.
And that's why I said I sounded more like the guy from Hercules. I know, you know.
I want to hear you. I mean, I feel like you can do a good Bill Paxton.
I just did, and I don't want to do it again.
You want to do it again? You want to do Philip Seymour Hoffman? I feel like David.
Extreme.
The extreme. No, I'm trying to think of a line now because I think I can do Bill Paxton if I work on it just a little bit.
He's not.
I don't know. Just say she's beautiful in reference to Dorothy.
She's beautiful.
Wow. See, I don't think
It's uncanny.
Bill Paxton's not the guy. He's not the guy to quote.
No, there's a more like I need a more iconic line than that.
There is none.
Or a longer line so I can actually explore the nuances of the voice.
Nuance of Bill Paxton's voice.
I'm right here, Joe.
I was here this whole time.
I was here this whole time. Yeah.
I mean, Irina, you can be the his wife or fiance.
Our listeners are just infuriated right now.
So
like it's just like, why are y'all
He
doing this?
He has a very weird relationship status. He's married and engaged all at the same time.
But you do get the impression that Helen Hunt has taken her time with the divorce papers, so it's just like this has got to happen.
Trying.
He wants to get married, but Helen Hunt says that's a no, Joe.
Yeah. So I'm Reese. Across from me we have
David,
and to his left,
Irina.
And unfortunately, nobody to my right, and nobody off yonder either. This is the skeleton crew of Franchise Killer. There's only ever been one episode with only one other episode with only the three of us, and that was the very first episode. It's a lost episode. Well, we covered Snow White and the Huntsman. So now we're down to a normal podcast group size.
Yeah.
Normally it's a party up in here, so it's kind of an awkward, like,
we're just gonna have to overcompensate. I'm gonna try to do all the Noah references I can.
Well, now you have one idea about what we spend our time on, and it's taking too long to
get to the movie
or try to do impressions of actors. But the movie we're talking about, and the movie that we did horrible Bill Paxton impressions to, is Twister. It's the fifth film in our disaster movie miniseries, a miniseries we kind of cobbled together after we did Titanic. Our 100th episode, decided, hey, why not? Let's stick in this realm for a little longer, do some disaster movies. So if you're just now listening to us, we have 4 disaster movie episodes behind this one. You got a smorgasbord of choices. You have Titanic, of course, the big one, and 2012, the Roland Emmerich, everything. And
all the disasters.
All disasters all wrapped into one.
You got your volcanoes, you got your earthquakes, you got your tsunamis, you have your Russians.
Yep, and then the sobering, ultra-realistic Contagion by Steven Soderbergh. And, oh gosh, okay. And San Andreas. 2 of these episodes, of course, the producer was a part of, since he has knowledge on earthquakes and some disasters.
He's a geologist. He belongs in a museum.
He does. He
maybe someday.
Donate your body to science.
A mausoleum.
Yeah, but tons of choices, and what better way to end this miniseries than with Twister? I feel like you've got 2 big disaster movies. The 2 big, I guess, the big man-made disaster movie and the big natural disaster movie. I think Titanic's the big man-made one, and Twister's the biggest non or natural. Unless y'all have any other ideas as to what might trump this one in terms of, I don't know, just big blockbustery
underwater volcano. I don't know.
What, is there a movie about that?
No.
Oh.
No, I just think like when you think of like the pinnacles of the disaster movie, when you're not factoring in aliens or anything like that, it's these
Right.
two.
Meteor.
I mean, you do have Armageddon. That one's a big one as well, but
Greenland.
That's not big. I'm talking about like blockbuster.
David's just that
hits.
guy who keeps
I'm just
slamming
gonna
the button,
name
going,
I got it.
Answer.
Into the storm.
The thing is, if you just keep going, eventually you're going to stumble across the right answer.
do really like what is it called, The Perfect Storm or something.
Into the Storm is what I was
Oh,
saying.
Into the
No,
Storm
Perfect
as well?
Storm. You're
Yeah.
with George Clooney. Yeah.
And then
picture.
there's another one that's like the Poseidon.
Oh, Poseidon.
Yeah,
Poseidon Adventure and then Poseidon the remake.
yeah. I don't know why I really liked those. Basically, boat disaster, like natural disaster movies.
I think because you're already in, like, I'm already scared of the ocean, and I would assume you are as well. So when you add like some sort of or disaster along with that, it just amps up.
There's no
the
survival that you
tension.
like in real life outside of an ocean. If a disaster happens, you at least feel like you can get somewhere or do something.
Yeah.
Tornado, you can run away. Earthquake, you can run away. You can't really run away from like a ship sink.
I will not say you can run away from an earthquake.
You could try. You feel
could
more.
try.
You feel more in control than you do
You
if
are
you're on a boat that
the
is
earth,
sinking.
That
however
is true.
shaky it may be.
Yeah, I do agree though. Like on a ship, you're kind of out in the middle of it all. There's not really much you can do
Imagine
about
seeing
it.
a vast nothingness around you in the middle of the night as you're sinking into the water. You're just like, well, guess I'm gonna die now.
True. There are some volcanoes you cannot run away from. I'll say that.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, if you could see the volcano erupting, you're probably not gonna make it.
Or at least a certain type of volcano.
Yeah.
Right, producer?
Right.
Pyroclastic flow. Am I right?
Wow.
All right. The
He's
movie.
just glaring at me.
Yeah, the movie again, Twister. Movie that came out in not 2015, but that's what I put here. 1996. Directed by Jan de Bont, who also directed Speed, Speed 2 Cruise Control, and Lara Croft Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life.
Whoa, that sounds familiar. That
Cradle of
might be
Filth.
one of the Cradle of Filth.
Cradle
it
of Filth.
really grows on you.
This is so that's all he's done pretty much, which is
That's it.
Yeah,
Those
it's
are
a-
all blockbusters.
No, it's a baffling filmography because Speed, action classic, Keanu Reeves, very highly regarded movie in terms of just pulpy 90s perfectly executed action.
Is that the one with the bus?
Yes.
Okay.
And then Twister, in my opinion, an amazing, I don't know, disaster movie. Amazing maybe is stretching it, but it's still along that line of like, okay, this is a director to watch. And then he did Speed 2 Cruise Control, which is often regarded as one of the worst sequels, nay,
What?
movies ever made.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's like cut Keanu Reeves, keep Sandra Bullock, and it's on a boat. Like it's same premise of
We can't let the boat speed get too low. Or
yeah, it's
it'll
like some, and I haven't
explode.
seen it, but
Is
that's
it called Cruise Control because it's on a boat?
Cruising on the
I
open
guess.
seas.
But what sounds more boring than cruise control? Like cruise control is a word you use for like, oh, that's a safe speed.
Yeah.
Like
They're cruising
about
at a fast speed. That's what makes it dangerous.
you couldn't come up with something like speed, maximum velocity, or something like
overdrive.
yeah.
Death will
Control.
come of us
Yeah.
all words.
And then Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Cradle of Life, which I've heard, which is not as bad, and I haven't seen Speed 2, but from what I've seen of Lara Croft, I'm not like that's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not good.
That was the top 5 first movies we covered on this podcast.
Yes, weirdly. But yeah, that was one of the. I just remember that, and it was that second one, so the one
Yeah.
with the fake sharks and all that.
Yeah, I just remember underwater scenes.
I just remember that one being like, yeah, that's about what I was expecting from this. Like,
I need to go back. I feel like that was before I even knew how to grade movies. Like I probably gave it an 8 or something. I need to go check.
probably. I feel like I
Thinking
would
back on it, I
would've
remember being
ribbed,
bad.
I would have ribbed you a little harder if you gave that movie an 8.
Please do.
So, the movie Twister, that is, stars Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, Jamie Gertz, Carrie Elwes, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and it's written by Michael Crichton and Anne Marie Martin.
Michael Crichton.
Ooh, speaking of Michael Crichton, I watched Jurassic Park earlier today.
Hey,
so
there you go.
weirdly got prepped.
Was it just
for
on, or
this.
did you decide, no, I'm in the mood to...
I was in the mood. I think the closer it gets to spring and summer, I just start wanting to watch Raiders and Jurassic
And you got
Park
that new
and
Jurassic Park
all
coming out
that.
as well, with all the
Yep.
old stars returning. Oh,
Yep.
it's not going to be the first one, of course, but it looks fun. I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, Joss Whedon was brought in to kind of touch up the script as well, but that kind of fell through. I've found that Joss Whedon is in so many things that I didn't realize he was in from just a writing perspective.
Did he write Avengers?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
pretty
okay.
sure he did. But
right.
don't quote me on that. Because that feels like a
Yeah.
Joss Whedon movie.
I
Yeah,
think
it
he
does.
was. I think he was involved at least in some degree.
Yeah. Fun fact: Michael Crichton at the time he was commissioned to do the script for this movie for about $2.5 million, which at the time was the biggest the highest amount of money anyone had ever been paid for doing a script to a film.
That's insane.
So, yeah, I think that's about as much as the director got paid for this movie as well. I think he was paid between $2 and $3 million. So imagine just like writing the movie versus directing the movie, and those two are like same payday.
Michael Crichton, though, is probably a bigger name than John DeBont.
Yeah, no, for sure. But still, it's just funny to think that the person that did maybe the lion's share of the work on this got paid the same as the person who drafted a script.
Yeah. Although without a good script, you don't have a good movie.
True. But that said, with the rewrites that they had to do for this, was it a good script?
Well,
And also another fun fact, this was originally going to be directed by Steven Spielberg. He was actually the one that was very interested in the idea about this movie. And the cast, if you know Steven Spielberg, who do you think was set to star in the lead role? Bill Paxton's role. Not lead role. Sorry, not Helen Hunt's role.
Yeah. I actually do have an idea.
throw it out.
No, I want to see if you can guess it.
The guy from Jurassic Park.
No, but he would totally work. Sam Neill?
He
Yeah,
makes sense.
Neil. Yeah, Sam Neill.
Think of the other one.
The other one. Han Solo.
Is it Harrison Ford?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I couldn't think of
I
Harrison
can see
Ford
that
for
too,
some
though.
reason.
No, Tom Hanks is the one they had in mind for this. Which
He's pretty big.
it's hard to know because we have the movie that we have,
Right.
and it's Bill Paxton, and he fits it so well that you're like, yeah, Tom Hanks couldn't do what Bill Paxton does, and it's like, no, that's not the way you should think. It would be a different take on the character. But
I could see him, but I don't know. For me, Tom Hanks has never really sold the kind of gritty side in my mind.
Excuse me, he has some great gritty movies.
No, but he's still kind of like there's something about him that's very like
he's America's dad. Just everyone thinks
boyish and
he's.
lighthearted.
Wilson.
So I don't know. I think I
If
wouldn't.
you've seen Road to Perdition, that's the one that comes the closest, I think, to being a darker Tom Hanks, but still,
Right.
it's still Tom Hanks.
It's like I think Bill Paxton is kind of like, even though I know who he is, he's never felt like an outrageously movie star in my mind. He kind of comes across as like just someone you would actually come across in a situation like this.
An everyman.
Yeah.
He's like, he fits under what I would call like the Ethan Hawke vibe.
I could see
Like
that.
he
in
can
terms
hold
of-
the star power of a movie, but
Right.
you rarely think of him as A-list.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
in terms of acting style, but definitely in terms of like how they fit into a movie.
His
And
performance is always kind of understated.
Yeah.
You know.
Anyway, for those that are new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, Arena, had you seen Twister before your viewing of this episode?
Absolutely. I hadn't seen it though in I think like 10 years or something. So I don't think it was one that struck me as hard as it might have you as a kid, but I do remember really enjoying it, and the music as soon as it started up when we watched it a few days ago was just really brought me back.
Yeah. David?
Yes, I had. I saw it once growing up, and then the most recent time I watched it, unfortunately, I was in high school, and I made my way to Houston for this track thing, and I was staying over at a family friend's house, and then I got really sick, and I was just doing lots of things I wish I wasn't for every 5-10 minutes. Yeah, I was vomiting. Let's just go ahead and fill those gaps in there.
I was going to say, what could that be?
I will say
What
this
was
is a good sick day movie.
Yeah, I just remember laying in the dark room, being very uncomfortable, with a bowl in my lap, watching Bill Paxton chase storms.
Hey,
So that's my last memory of watching
nothing wrong
this.
with that. Except the vomit in the bowl.
Yeah. Well, it left a bad taste in my mouth, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for my part, I think this was a theatrical experience for me. I'm pretty sure pretty sure Dad took me to this one and we saw it. I could be wrong, but I think this had to be theatrical. Do you remember at all?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to go with it.
You saw this in theaters?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think so. I was 6 years old. So, I mean, that's not that crazy.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it just like that's almost at the point where you're so young that you wait. It's like, did that happen there or there?
I
Yeah.
wouldn't remember. My parents wouldn't have taken me to see this at 6.
But I seem to remember just being kind of overwhelmed by the experience of watching this movie in a way that I don't think I would have watching it on the home screen. So I think it was theatrical. If not, I definitely still saw it in 1996 when it came out. This is one of my older movie memories. So yeah, definitely seen it. And there's a long stretch between then and recently that I didn't watch it. So I want to say maybe about 4 years ago, I started putting this movie back in. I think it had a Blu-ray, or whenever the Blu-ray came out, I was like, oh, Twister, and bought it and have just been kind of wearing out that Blu-ray of this movie. So that's kind of where I'm at with Twister. Definitely, it's a nostalgia play, so it's going to get an extra bump in the scores probably, as much as I'm going to try to be objective on this one. So yeah, that's where I'm at with Twister.
Nice.
David, before we get into that story, do you want to give us a quick call to action?
Sure thing. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Franchise Killer podcast, where we do movie reviews. And if you want to keep hearing us talk about our favorite movies or not favorite movies, you should go out there and help us out any way you can. Tell a friend, follow us on Instagram, check us out on Twitter. But the biggest thing you can do for us is go on Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. If you leave us a 5-star review and put a little couple words in there, let us know what you think, we will read that live on air. So go ahead and do that for us, please, because we need it, because no one else is doing it. Do it. Do it.
Thank you. All right. David, give us that story.
It's coming! Everybody underground now! Come on! Get underground! Take cover right now!
The producers of Jurassic Park and the director of Speed bring you face to face with Twister.
Get out of there! Hurry!
There's no place to run.
Right!
There's nowhere to hide.
Left!
No time to escape.
Right!
Don't think.
It's gonna drop right on us! Find something to grab a hold of!
Don't breathe. And never, ever look back. Twister.
In 1969, Jo Thornton and her family take shelter from an approaching tornado. However, her father is killed when the tornado tears off the shelter door he's attempting to hold shut. 27 years later, Jo is a meteorologist obsessed with tornadoes and leader of a ragtag team of storm chasers. She's on the brink of divorce from retired storm chaser turned weatherman Bill Harding. Bill travels to rural Oklahoma to get Jo to sign the divorce papers, also including his new fiancée, reproductive therapist Melissa Reeves. Though Bill has no intention of sticking around, he is intrigued by Dorothy, an invention he conceptualized but never saw realized. Dorothy would be revolutionary for tornado research, but has to be dangerously deployed in the damage path of a tornado. Jo's team rushes off to chase a developing storm, while Bill and Melissa are forced to pursue them when Jo packs the unsigned papers. On the way, Bill runs into Jonas Miller, a rival storm chaser, and is forced off the road by Jonas's team. While getting his Dodge fixed at a repair shop, he discovers Jonas has stolen his idea for a Dorothy device and plans to deploy his corporate-sponsored version first to receive sole credit. Enraged, Bill agrees to give Jo 1 day for her team to successfully deploy Dorothy. The team pursues a developing F1 tornado, this time in Jo's Jeep. In a fit of impulsiveness, Bill maneuvers the Jeep into a ditch with the tornado gaining ground speed and strength. It shifts directions toward them and destroys a barn as Bill crashes the truck into a bridge. They seek shelter under the bridge as the tornado destroys the Jeep and Dorothy. With more storms developing, Bill uses his own truck as a lead vehicle, and the team pursues an intensifying F2 tornado. Once again, they encounter Jonas's team, but Bill uses his instinct to accurately predict a sudden change in the tornado's path somehow. While driving, heavy rain forces the team to stay back while Bill drives the truck toward a lake. The team find 2 water spouts, with one of them splitting into 2. 2 of the water spouts ambush their truck and thrash it about violently before dissipating. Bill and Joe are unscathed, but Melissa is left understandably terrified by the ordeal.
Understandably.
Yeah. Words. They ain't coming out today.
Okay, so we have our opening sequence. Little Joe, played by Alexa Vega, which kind of blew my mind.
Little Joe.
Same girl from Spy Kids. When you told me that, was it you, David?
Yeah, it was me.
I just was...
Well, you didn't believe it. I can just tell you now.
I did not believe you.
No,
I just
you
straight up did
legitimately
not
were
believe
like, no, that's a different Alexa Vega. I was like, I don't think so.
But then I was watching it again. I was like, oh, it is her.
Yeah, you can
but
see some of the features.
it's just weird. So her father gets pulled away from in a tornado while trying to hold the latch to their underground shelter shut, which David keenly pointed out. Why didn't he go sit with them? They seemed safe even when the hatch blew off.
As a dad, man, you just got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, but still sets up the character of Joe. She was born. She what's the band line? You merely adopted the Twister. I was born in it.
She literally was born. Well,
Yeah.
No, she wasn't.
She was born in a twister.
But yeah, she's kind of sets her on this path for her. Like it's her journey now. Like, I will be chasing Twisters, and I've got this kind of an axe to grind with Twisters. You almost get the sense that she hates the Twister, and it's a revenge story.
It's
almost.
like I will dominate you, basically.
If she solves the twister problem, maybe her dad will come back.
Yeah. What'd y'all think of the opening sequence? The kind of first initial tragedy, I guess.
It was good. You think a storm shelter would have a better door system?
Oh yeah, I
but-
was laughing so hard when
latch.
they put the little bar through the
Look,
the
I'm
tiny
just
little
gonna
bar.
say I lived in Tornado Alley for 5 years, and we had a basement. We had this storm door that was very similar, but there was 2 of them. You have a door, you go down these stairs, and you have another door, and they have a lot more intense latches. They're made out of metal. I mean, maybe not every house has those, but this one was like a rickety wooden door that had like a toothpick holding it closed.
I think the argument that you could make here is that it was in an F5 or whatever, which is much more intense than I'm guessing they were used to. So
Yeah.
that was maybe the extenuating circumstance here. But even so, the door does look a little ridiculous.
What this movie does, almost a comedic effect, but it actually works because this movie's kind of heightened reality anyway, is it sets up the F5 as like the boogeyman throughout the movie. Or not the
Right,
boogeyman.
yeah.
It's
or
the white whale.
Or hand of God, as they
Yeah,
say in the
yep,
midpoint
yep.
of the movie. Like, you get the F5 that killed her father.
Yep.
And then you get the reference to everyone at the dinner table later on when is there an F5?
We don't
And like
say
everyone's
that.
just
Everyone
quiet,
just-
like she said Voldemort or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Silence.
And then later on, it's bookended with F5 at the end. So that's like the villain of the story is
Right.
this. You almost get the sense that it's the same F5 coming
Right,
back.
that took her
like-
father.
Do you guys remember James and the Giant Peach? Like,
Yeah.
you know that storm that rolls in is like a
With the
rhino?
rhino?
Yeah,
It's been
that's
so
what it makes
long
me
since
think
I saw
of.
that.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
So good.
I haven't seen it since theaters.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding.
All right,
you.
I'll add it to the list.
You should
Yeah.
watch it again.
I remember randomly, like, everyone was going to the theater and we're like, oh, what should we watch? James and the Giant Peach? Okay, whatever. And we saw it and it was creepy.
Very.
Oh, I loved it so much. I had a weird taste in kids' movies back then.
You
I
still
mean-
do.
Yeah. I would say
You have not changed.
It says the person that watched Thumbelina like several times a day.
Wait, when you say it like that, it made it sound like I do. No, you did.
Yeah,
That
I'm
wasn't-
referring to myself.
Yes.
that was a movie for me. Whenever you put it on, I was like, oh, this is the longest, worst movie ever. And then I looked recently at actually how long that movie was. It wasn't long at all. Like,
Yeah,
but
it-
like I hated
No,
it
I
so
remember
much.
the same
When you
thing.
find it
Yeah.
miserable, it's much longer.
Yeah, I hated it so much, and it wasn't. It's not even a bad movie, but for whatever reason, I was just a boy,
It's a
and it's
creepy
just like
movie.
not
Yeah.
my thing.
I was
at the
creeped
time.
out by the bug.
Oh, gosh, we need to talk about James and the Giant Peach now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it. Franchise potential.
This
maybe
is
we should.
the rhino.
Maybe.
This is
Yeah.
it's his rhino, his white whale, the F5.
All right, fast forward to modern times, or 1996, whenever it's supposed to be. We have Bill Paxton in his nice product placement vehicle, the Dodge, where it's put through literally every trial that anything could ever be put through, and then it comes out. I mean, it gets destroyed at the end, but it survives a good amount of this movie unscathed.
Built tough.
Yes, bright red. It's like, can't miss it. He's going to get his trying to get his divorce papers signed. Joe is still doing her storm chasing thing. He's bringing Melissa along, which is his fiance. Joe's his ex-wife. And the movie is pretty good about establishing all of this really quickly. And we also get almost every cast member in this movie introduced in this one moment, save for Carrie Elwes, who we get to know later. What do you think about this cast of characters, specifically Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, since they're the main two players here? Or I should say Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. She is the top billed character here.
It's interesting that David mentioned the white whale, and like almost immediately I was like, yeah, she kind of is like, you know,
mad.
Yeah, it's kind of like Moby Dick a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like she definitely has kind of that drive where that's like her sole focus her entire life.
Yeah.
So.
Almost as if she wants to kind of die chasing the storm.
Well, yeah, there's that moment where like her truck's about to be picked up, and she's just like
she's
risking her
see it.
life to
Yeah.
go, like, I'm gonna see this thing. Like,
I really like her character. I love her as an actress. And just before we started recording, like we were even having a conversation with are we calling him our producer?
Yeah, he's our producer.
We were having a conversation with our producer about how she's really great in this kind of role, and just in general, like she doesn't feel like she's too Hollywood or anything.
Yeah.
Like it's not, I'm an actress putting on a performance. She feels very real and natural.
Which makes sense with Bill Paxton because he also has that vibe. And
Yeah.
together, who would've
I
guessed?
think they're a good pair, really. Like
they really are, and you wouldn't expect it on paper, but like in performance, like such a good chemistry that you believe that they have history together.
yeah.
Well, it was a smart move by Jan de Bont. I was watching an interview on sort of the behind the scenes or making of or whatever. And apparently, like, Helen Hunt was his first go-to. He was like, I need Helen Hunt in this.
Yeah.
And Bill Paxton, he wanted as well, but he seemed a little less like, he's like, if we get Bill Paxton, that'd be great. But I need Helen Hunt.
Well, I actually think Tom Hanks kind of gifted it to Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Like Tom Hanks was busy doing something, like he
Probably
wanted
Toy
it, and he was
Story or
like,
something.
"Hey, give it to Bill Paxton." They had just worked on Apollo 11 together, or Apollo, what was it? Oh my gosh, Apollo 13. Is that the name of that movie? We should know this.
I know Apollo, and then there's numbers. Dang.
Apollo 13. So they had a good relationship together. So, like, his first recommendation was Bill Paxton, and there he was.
Yep.
Which, honestly, Apollo 13, that's another semi-disaster movie. Not quite, because they all survive and they make it to the end. But that's the whole Houston, we have a problem movie. So Bill Paxton's no stranger to these realistic. Twister's not realistic. But
I would say it's realistic. What are you talking about?
It is
It's
to
not.
some elements, but not all.
It's hyper realized, but it is those tornadoes do happen like that. People do chase them like
but
this.
in terms of there's a lot of inaccuracies to this
I
movie.
know.
Like,
I know.
some of the depictions of the tornadoes, from what I could tell, are semi-accurate. However, if you were a storm chaser and you come across this many tornadoes this close in a season, you would set some sort of crazy record.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because
You also wouldn't get that close either.
yeah, exactly. Well, some of them surprisingly do.
Yeah.
Like, some of them are just like
Whatever.
willing to
let's
die.
do it.
Like, I will get this probe in here. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
I was watching some storm chaser videos on YouTube, and it was oddly accurate to the energy. It's like just some dudes who looked like they're driving a pickup truck with some radios. They're like, "It's over there."
Okay,
Get it!
what I will give you is accurate is their drive, literal drive
Right.
and
Yeah.
figurative drive to pursue tornadoes. That is comparable.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying they all look like amateurs. Even like the ones who are doing it for a living, they look like amateurs while they're doing it. Man, I'm sorry if you're a storm chaser out there and you take offense to that because you're an amateur. Sorry.
Gosh.
Wow.
Suck
Sorry.
it, storm chasers.
Coming at all the
Sorry if that
storm
sounded
chasers
like
right
y'all
now.
suck, but y'all suck. Is basically
Exactly. That's what I did. Faked him out is what I did.
Except no, you all definitely don't. You're all doing great work.
Doing
Thank
the
you.
Lord's work. Thank you.
Keep doing it.
But yeah, back on Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton here. Love this casting. Irina, did you have more to say on that?
No, I think I said my piece.
I like Helen Hunt.
I just really like how well they establish that they've had history.
Yeah.
Because there's already this, I don't know, not annoyance with one another, but it's like they know kind of, I don't know, the bickering between the two of them is so well done. And I
Right.
guess well written. And I like Melissa too. I don't have the actress's name here. But normally, like, movies like this, the new fiance or the new girl is usually just highly unlikable.
Yeah.
Or someone that is going to get killed off later on. David, you got
Yep.
her name?
Yep, it is Jamie Gertz.
Jamie Gertz. Thank you. I actually had her in the cast listing here. But yeah, they make her actually likable and human as well. And
yeah. Just
mean-
not used to the environment she's been thrown into. And surprisingly, like, trying her best to navigate it.
it almost made me sad.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, and then okay, also Philip Seymour Hoffman. We got the whole
Yeah.
crew here. The extreme. Love this guy.
I mean, he died doing the extreme. Rip Philip
Crickets.
Seymour. No, I rip Philip Seymour Hoffman, dude. He is a national treasure on the film screen. I miss him, and I wish we had him back.
Yeah, I do too.
What was his last movie? Like Mockingjay or something?
Yeah, I think it was like one
Wasn't
of those.
he was like working on something else, right?
I want to say the Mockingjay was his posthumous release.
Yeah.
Like he filmed it, and then the last one they had to kind of film around things to try
Right.
and make
Yeah,
it
to
work
make it
he was
work.
like
Right.
working on it at
Okay,
the time.
I think that was what it was.
Well, anyway, as far as this movie goes, he added levity and energy that I think it needed. Mm-hmm. I mean, as much as tornadoes are adding energy to it, but I think we needed his positivity.
Yeah, he lightens up the screen every time he's on here. He's almost like a kind of Jack Black energy at times in this
Actually, yeah.
movie a little
Yeah.
bit, where I could see Jack Black doing a role like this. Whereas Philip Seymour Hoffman has a lot more range.
He does.
This is like Philip Seymour Hoffman doing a Jack Black type role, I feel like.
Yep. If he decided to like sing lyrics, well, no, he does sing lyrics actually. Never mind, he is Jack Black.
Yeah. But another thing that I like, without even seeing Carrie Elwes's team, you get the sense that this is like a ragtag group, that they're kind of thrown together. There's nothing corporate or official about any of it. And they just do this because it's their passion.
Yeah.
So how do y'all feel about the... Let's move on to the first tornado chase. Bill Paxton, or Bill in this movie, has been kind of intrigued by Dorothy actually coming to life and being created. Joe kind of made it happen. And and since she hasn't signed the papers and he forgot, and Melissa doesn't completely oppose the idea of going to chase this tornado, they go on their first chase.
Well,
And-
it seems more like he went there originally to get her to sign the divorce papers, and then she left, and then she's like, "You got those papers signed, right?"
Yeah, that's what I said.
Sort of. You made it sound more like he was just going to go on. Like, we might as well just join him.
Huh?
You made it sound like he was like,
I think
guess
he was intrigued. I said he was intrigued by the tornado.
I said, well, I think
Or in Dorothy.
he was forced to follow them, and then when the tornado landed, they're like, well, I guess we're going to do this now.
Yeah. But yeah, we get our first tornado chase, and the first victim is Joe's truck. What'd y'all think of this first sequence? And I guess we can get into a little bit of like the CGI talk if you want.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. I'll let Irina, like, what did you think about this first sequence? And then David can break
Oh,
it down
yeah.
if he wants.
I think as far as a story perspective, it was kind of necessary to get the energy going, because you've already established like this interesting tension between, him and his ex, technically still married to, but trying to divorce wife. And then also just kind of easily being reeled into this first chase. And you get a little bit of a tease at what it would be like to storm chase. And I'm going to say, like, if I were to ever be an adrenaline junkie of any kind, this would be my form of adrenaline.
I was thinking the
I feel
same
like,
thing.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I would enjoy storm chasing
Guys,
rather
yeah.
than
Can
other
we do this?
things.
Can we have like a franchise killer
Yeah.
storm chasing
chase?
team?
Yeah,
Yeah.
This sounds
And
like definitely feasible.
I don't know if that's just because of the movie, which like the movie does that well. It kind of makes you want to do something like this, you know?
Well, I'm the exact same way where I am not an adrenaline
Right.
junkie at all, but I get excited in a really bad storm.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
too.
I do
Me
too.
too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, this would be like the next level. You're
It's like
seeking
even
that.
though it's spooky, you're still kind of amazed by it and like, ooh,
Yeah.
I wonder what's gonna happen. I would always get
That-
kind of disappointed when there was a tornado watch and a tornado didn't actually show up. Like as
So
a
you're
kid,
the same way as me. Like I don't
Yeah.
wish destruction upon
Right,
people, but
yeah,
like,
exactly.
The prospect of a tornado being nearby is like
yeah.
fun.
It's like the
In a
same
weird way.
feeling you get when you see like the storm clouds rolling in. You're like, ooh, there's gonna be a storm.
The weird thing about tornadoes in storms like that is that you have it, like if you see it, it doesn't mean you're going to die at all. It means like, oh, I should probably go get to safety. You have enough time to make it happen a lot of the time. They're just unpredictable, and but if you're in the right spot, you'll be fine. But it's weird knowing when you're staring at a distance, when you see a tornado, like that is death. Like I'm staring at something that is capable of wiping out like a town. It's weird.
Yeah, I know.
It's
It's
oddly
such a weird
beautiful,
phenomenon. Like
sublime.
it's something where if an alien were to land on this Earth, they'd be like, "This is a fantasy planet, like we dreamed in Dungeons and Dragons or whatever." You got lightning and weird whirlwind storms. It's just all
Yep.
sorts of stuff. But yeah, tornadoes are awesome, and except for when they kill people, that's not
Yeah,
good.
that's not good.
But David, what did you think of the effects in this movie? And did you do any CGI research here? This
did.
is our first tornado.
Well, I want to start off by saying I have a little bit of connection to tornadoes. I know that I brought up being in Tornado Alley, but I actually had an experience driving by one once. And I was with my dad. We were on this like country road in Chillicothe, Ohio. He had a convertible, and we had the top down, and we were just driving by these cornfields. And then he stopped to like raise the roof of the car.
Raise the roof.
He was raising the roof. He's putting the why can't I think at the top of a car? The top of the car going back on top of the convertible. And but as I was doing, like hail was coming down, and we looked at the cornfield to the left of us. I just remember seeing the funnel touch down, and I was like, Dad. And then he's like,
Let's
he
go.
floored it. We were going, man. So anyway, that was like thrilling but scary at the
that's
same
cool.
time. Nothing bad happened, but it was cool seeing like an actual tornado land in
Yeah.
person. But yeah, so like seeing this on screen, surprisingly really good effects. There are things that I thought could have been done better, but for the time, I don't think you could. I think they
Yeah.
did nearly everything they could. I watched a CGI artist break down this movie. It's like an hour-long video of him going through every sequence.
Yeah.
And he said it doesn't hold up the same way as it did when it first came out, but with the limitations they had, it's really impressive, and it was groundbreaking. One of the things they could have done that would have helped a little bit is if they shot it at dusk or like sort of like before the sun rose or went down, and then that would allow them to change the lighting around, because then this is very bright, and a lot
Yeah.
of the times even when the tornadoes are out, the shadows don't match, and there's some lighting issues. So, but
Yeah.
that's something they learned from this movie to do in future movies. So they kind of paved the way, if you will. And this was what's the company that George Lucas started? ILM?
No, that would be
I love
Amblin.
movies.
No,
Amblin or DreamWorks.
no. ILM is the CGI.
That would be.
company.
Oh yeah, that's Lucas. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. You said Lucas.
Yeah.
For some reason, I heard Spielberg. I don't know why.
Yeah, I was gonna say I knew Amblin was Spielberg, but yeah, ILM, and they did the, sort of like the tornadoes and stuff. There's a lot of, I think there was 200 something CG shots in this. Obviously the one with the cow, and there's all the tornadoes, the way they composited the sky in almost every scene, which is really cool. Polygonal, yeah,
Polygonal, you had it right the first time.
Good polygonal, dust clouds and the way they do fluid shapes, they didn't even have yet at the time before they could even do that. So they had to do a lot of it by hand. If you look at how they made it, science is weird, man. Like they had all these circles like spinning in a vortex on a computer screen with like triangles flying on the ground, and you're like, how did they make this look like I still don't understand. But
they did it.
They did, and a lot of it is compositing, matching lighting and stuff, and it looks good.
I think this would go in my top 5 of 90s in terms of effects work. Like probably at the bottom of the top 5, but still in the
Where's
top 5.
Jurassic Park land?
Jurassic Park's number 1.
Yeah.
No, yes. Jurassic Park's number 1. Second, Titanic. I'd put Independence Day in there somewhere.
Nice.
Because that movie just looks really good still. It's not the best movie ever made, but it looks amazing.
It's a fun one.
As bad as it is, I think Godzilla still has really good
Oh,
effects.
1998.
Yeah, 97, I think. Or 98.
We
You're
had
right,
this
98.
conversation.
Yeah, you're right. And then this one as well.
So it
Roland
sounds like
Emmerich,
a lot of disaster movies.
So 2 Roland Emmerich movies there with Independence Day and Godzilla. That's one thing he excels at. He has the right team to bring these crazy effects shots to life that mix like practical and CGI really well. One thing I did want to say about this movie that I think really helps it succeed is the setting. This was all filmed in, not all of it, but most of it was filmed in Oklahoma. So a big, definitely in Tornado Alley. This is the type of terrain that you would see a lot of the times, or this looks like Storm Chaser territory.
Well, they actually were chasing some of the storms in real time.
Yeah, then that just reinforces my
that's why it
thought
feels
then, I
real.
guess. It just, I never don't feel like I'm in this world, or the Storm Chaser world. It just,
Yeah.
I love it. I don't,
Even though it's all mostly cornfields everywhere and like just grassy
Well, I
plains,
mean-
but that's where tornadoes are.
It's very believable as far as location goes. Like, and also all the people they encountered, like the diners, and then her aunt's house, and the way they all act. Like,
it's all these rural
they're-
areas.
Country roads.
It's kind of like in comparison to something like Con Air, when they try to show what it's like living, out in these kind of areas. Like, this is much more believable. Like, if anyone needed a reference for kind of what it's like traveling through.
In Con Air, you're talking about the place where they land.
Yeah.
And, okay, yeah.
I mean, Con Air is like a really exaggerated example, but like if anyone wanted to know what it was like being in just kind of middle of the U.S., this like just flat land, Kansas, Oklahoma, all that kind of stuff, like this is a pretty good reference.
And if you want to compare 1-to-1, another tornado movie that came out more recently, Into the Storm. I don't know if y'all have seen this one. Stars Thorn Oakenshield actor.
Richard Armitage?
Yeah, Richard Armitage. It's a movie about a massive tornado outbreak, and literally all sorts of weird tornadoes come out of the woodworks. But something about that movie feels so detached from reality when you watch it. None of it is in any way scary or interesting, or like and I've said this in previous disaster movies. I think you need to establish the setting really well and authentically, like Titanic did, where it's like, oh, I believe this ship, I believe these people, and then kind of set up the foreboding disaster that's coming and actually make people scared of it, make it seem like an intimidating thing. Into the Storm feels like a bunch of people attacked by CGI, not by a tornado.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like Oklahoma or a place where it would actually happen. It's just an excuse to throw tornadoes at people. This
Right.
one's more plausible because they're seeking it out. It's not happening to them. And
Right.
I don't know. I think this movie is very successful in setting up the stakes of storm chasing and how scary and violent tornadoes can be. Even though some of the CGI is somewhat dated and isn't as convincing, it still conveys it properly.
Yeah.
I think you'd be crazy to think that it didn't look good, especially the distance shots. I mean, it holds up in my opinion. There are a couple ones that aren't, like the one with the water spouts and the cow.
Yeah.
But otherwise, pretty solid.
I think I can see the CGI pretty obviously in every scene.
Every scene?
Not every scene, but it's more of a like, I'm impressed by what they were able to accomplish at that time. Like it doesn't look real to me, but
Right.
the stakes still feel real because the commitment to it is in the right place. I don't know.
It blends well. We've talked about
Yeah.
this
I know
where
what you
even
mean.
if you can see it, as long as it feels real in the world that is being shown
Yes.
to you, you'll believe it. I think I've said it before, especially with lighting and stuff. Even if you have like two different forms of art, but as long as their lighting matches and they're interacting properly, you kind of just like it was it called? Something about disbelief. You kind of just it suspends disbelief.
And I think actually watching it now, we have it on in the background, having all these practical weather effects happening at the same time really helps. Like there's a lot of actual stuff being thrown around.
Right.
And the wind always seems just insane. And I think that adds to the believability of the twister in the background.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that comes to the second tornado because
Are we there yet in the story? Have we hit the second one? I think
we did, but I'll double check.
I know you had talked about the two that were over water and stuff.
Yeah. So we've definitely gotten to the
so
second one, and it's after the second one that they go to Joe's house, right?
Yes.
Or Joe's aunt's house.
Yeah, it's where they lose the second Dorothy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they lose the second Dorothy. Melissa overhears Bill Paxton, or Bill. I keep just wanting to say Bill Paxton, but his name's just Bill. Okay, that must have been easy on set. Just call
Yeah,
him
I
Bill.
know. Just call him Bill.
Sometimes they do that in movies, and I think it's like kind of intentional because it helps the actor. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just
Never
thinking about there was a movie
Yeah.
recently where the two leads both had their original names, and I was like, well, that was easy.
Yeah, but Bill is pulling Joe away from the tornado, which you wonder how Joe ever survived without someone pulling her away from tornadoes. Because there's at least 2 tornadoes he pulls her away from in this, where she would have been just sucked up into the vortex.
Maybe she hasn't been chasing tornadoes in a long time. Maybe she's
Yeah,
been
maybe she's been
focusing
working on
building
Dorothy the whole time.
Yeah.
And maybe before then, Bill was still there.
Exactly. What's cool about this is, like you said before, the practical effects. I learned that. So what was it? Jan DeBont learned that a lot of the time you have hail when a tornado is about to start, and he's like, "Oh, gotta have it." And he had this whole plan of having ice cubes, like these massive ice, brought in to chip and then shoot at the cars. And then he found out nowhere in Oklahoma could you get the ice he needed. So he had to ship it in from a different state. And then the first time he had it shipped in, it melted before they could even use it.
Oh my gosh.
And on camera, he's like, I really wish I didn't have that idea, because it worked out. It took a long time. We finally got the ice. We kept it cold enough. We used it properly, got the shot. But man, kind of wish I didn't do that.
Or I read that he was kind of a pain in the ass to work with on this
no
movie. Like nothing was perfect. He'd have to keep shifting things around and moving the crew around. Like, hey, no, we got to get this shot. No, that's not working. We got to move over here. And apparently there's like the crew walked out at one point. It's just like, we're done. We're not dealing with this guy. Because apparently he would never take the blame for anything. Would be blaming everyone else.
This sounds
for
like a
everything that
James
was wrong.
Cameron thing.
Maybe.
James Cameron had that
But-
happen in one of the early films he did.
James Cameron at least has the pedigree, like the more extensive filmography that's more impressive than this guy.
That happened in his first film, and it was Aliens. That was his first movie, and the crew walked out, and he had to like beg them to come back.
Yeah. Well, Helen Hunt apparently hit her head multiple times on things in this movie.
Ouch.
And in an interview, he was just like, well, we all know she's just kind of clumsy.
Oh,
my gosh.
no, you don't say that.
Oh my gosh.
You don't say that.
And yeah, she took offense to that.
I would
understandably.
too.
You know how
Like,
she is.
Excuse me.
Classic
yeah.
Bill Paxton.
So this second tornado sequence, pretty cool. The water spouts don't look real, but I really like the sequence on the road where they're trying to get Dorothy to work the second time. Again, kind of looks CGI in my opinion. But 1996.
How's the cow?
Still
Do you
pretty
like
good.
the cow flying by?
I mean, that's the big trailer moment I feel like that everyone remembers
Yeah.
about this movie where, oh, is that a cow?
Is that a cow?
Oh, look, another one. I think that's the same one.
I learned from the CGI artist who was doing the research on it that a lot of times with tornadoes, farmers and ranchers would find their cows hundreds of miles away.
Still alive.
Still alive.
That must mean that they're just heavy enough to not be like picked up too
Yeah,
far
they're
and
just kind of like carried a little
You
bit.
just know that's going to be a weird day for the cow. Just kind of like landing. It's like, I guess I'm here now. But
just grazing on some grass.
that specific cow they rendered, apparently the next movie James DeBont did after this, which was, what was it? Speed 2. Mm-hmm. He used, or one of the CGI artists, I don't think they actually even knew it, put it in the background of one of these explosions. And it was on a ship, so no cow should have been there. But off in the distance, if you freeze frame it, you see this cow flying, and it probably made the final cut, but it's the exact same one from
That's
this movie.
hilarious.
So
I
think
thought you were going to go
amazing.
talk about how that cow was a zebra in Jumanji, like the same digital model.
No, I don't.
Yeah, they like picked up the digital model from the zebra in Jumanji and carried over that data
And just tweaked it.
and tweaked it turn it into a
that makes
cow.
sense. And then they used it on Speed. They're getting their money's worth out of it.
Yeah, that's true. That cow's been around. Or that zebra, I should say. All right, but we didn't touch on it, but I almost got into it, where Melissa overhears Bill telling Joe that, hey, you're doing all this and you're forgetting what's right in front of you. Me, Joe.
I'm here.
So she's upset. I honestly feel bad for her because she seems like a nice lady.
Melissa's so sweet, and she's getting dragged through tornado to tornado for no good reason.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
she
I mean,
gets dumped.
she said she was kind of interested in it at first, and then there was that funny line where she thought it was a metaphor when he said he chases storms or whatever. He's
Yeah.
like, I didn't know you actually chased storms.
I thought you
that
just
was a
stayed and
metaphor.
looked at things on a computer screen.
Yeah. All right, but that kind of solidifies it for her. I'm out, basically. We're not there yet, but she doesn't make it much longer. David, do you want to continue that story?
Yes, I will. The team talk Joe into visiting her Aunt Meg's house in the nearby small town of Waukeeta, Oklahoma. Over steak and eggs, Bill explains Joe's childhood story to Melissa, while Meg infers Joe is still in love with Bill and advises her to stay with him. The team hears on the radio a developing F3 and the team scrambles to pursue it. Joe and Bill encounter the tornado on a hill and are bombarded with hail and debris. The tornado dissipates, but quickly backbuilds and knocks over power lines, one of which destroys Dorothy too. With the pack ruined and the truck moderately damaged, go truck, Bill retreats against Joe's wishes. An argument ensues, causing Joe to break down and reveal she became a storm chaser to prevent what happened to her father from happening again. Bill reveals that he envisions a future for their marriage, not realizing that their entire conversation is overheard by Melissa through CB radio. That night, the crew repair the vehicle in a shop next to a drive-in screening of The Shining, where Joe finally agrees to sign the divorce papers to assuage Bill's conflicting feelings. However, the sudden appearance of an F4 tornado forces the team to seek shelter in a nearby garage. The tornado devastates the theater, severely damaging the garage, causing a flying hubcap to injure the preacher's head, and destroys two of the team's vehicles before proceeding directly towards Waukeeta. Before they leave to assist Meg, Melissa severs her relationship with Bill and wishes him the best. Waukeeta is left in ruin by the tornado, and Meg is rescued with minor injury from her collapsing house. Explaining to Joe and the ambulance that Waukeeta had little to no warning of the F4 approaching as the tornado siren sounded mere seconds before it struck. With a record-breaking F5 tornado forecasted by the National Severe Storms Laboratory to form the next day, Bill and Joe are inspired by Meg's wind vanes to add aluminum wings to Dorothy 3 and 4 sensors, making them more aerodynamic. The next day, the team pursue the correctly predicted mile-wide F5 tornado. Bill and Joe attempt to deploy Dorothy 3, but it gets destroyed by a projectile tree trunk as it's too light for the tornado to eat. Meanwhile, Jonas attempts to deploy his device, but drives too close to the storm. Bill and Joe try to warn him via radio, but Jonas ignores their concerns and is soon violently killed along with the driver Eddie. While Dorothy 4 affixed to the truck's bed, the two sacrifice Bill's Dodge by placing it on cruise control and jumping out at the last second. With the truck serving as an effective anchor, Dorothy 4 is successfully deployed with immediate results. However, Joe and Bill are forced to outrun the tornado on foot as it shifts toward them. They attempt to hide in a barn, but move on upon discovering it's full of sharp equipment. The weakening F5 destroys the barn as the two enter a nearby shed, and strapping themselves to deep pipes, they get a unique view of the storm's eye as the tornado hovers over them and slowly dissipates. In the aftermath of their latest near-death encounter, they officially rekindle their relationship with a kiss and celebrate their success with the rest of the crew.
Producer, you said that you got into your profession because you liked disasters. I'm very curious. Did you ever consider, I don't know, a different career in something that involved tornadoes or any other sort of disaster?
No, but they're fascinating. It was hurricanes, actually, that interested me the first time. And been fortunate enough to study a few of those on the Texas coast.
They are super fascinating because I feel like we still don't know a lot about them, whereas other disasters, you got a pretty good idea about how they work. And tornadoes are still the one thing that are, yes, we've progressed a little with them, but you still don't have a lot of warning
Yeah.
when they show up. It's like, hey, the weather looks like it could produce a tornado, but throws
I
hands
guess
up.
we'll
I don't
see.
know.
If the sky is turning a little green and it's starting to hail,
Yeah.
it's a good sign. I actually remember I was little and I was at a baseball game in the park in Ohio, and it wasn't even raining. That's the weird thing. It wasn't even that windy either. But the sky was turning green, and all of a sudden you hear the.
It's got to be like the most ominous thing.
Like the baseball game stopped. Everyone's like, "Up, time to go home," and we did. We went home. We went in the basement, and we had a radio that we were listening to see where the tornado was. And I remember it's like tornado heading left on Pace Road, and we're like, "Okay, wow."
Good to know. Avoid Pace Road.
Yeah, well, I actually had a friend who lived down near that road, so I was like, "Oh shit." I was like, "Oh no, Jace,
not you.
survive."
I'm coming for you.
Survive.
Yeah, even watching this movie, we were talking about how, like, just imagine living way, way before all of, our science and everything has defined our natural surroundings. And I just I would come to the same conclusion that if a tornado touched down, I would think the gods were angry with me about something. Like that I
Dang it,
did something wrong.
again.
They're just so amazing.
Yeah.
Just walking into somebody's house and you're like stealing something, and you walk out and you see it touch down, and you're like, "Whoops!" and you turn back around and just put it right back down where you
Never
stole
mind.
it.
It's fine.
So I'll add one little anecdote here. You can take it or leave it. I grew up in North Texas, and I went to college at the University of Texas. And I was in college as a geology major in 1979. But my sister was still living in the North Texas area in Wichita Falls, and she was watching a movie on April 10th, 1979.
Oh, Superman, right?
At the Sykes Center Mall, which was the big mall there in Wichita Falls. And that happened to be the day, called a Terrible Tuesday, that an F4 tornado struck Wichita Falls.
Wow.
And a mile-wide coalescence of 3 other tornadoes, and killed something like 40 people.
Oh,
and
man.
my sister was in the theater when it went overhead. And the movie was over, and they were all filing out. And the workers at the Sykes Center Mall Theater told them to everybody get back into the theater and crawl under the chair.
Oh my gosh.
And it must have been pretty bad. You know what the floor underneath a movie theater chair is probably like. So
Gum,
they were all there.
soda.
And then after the storm passed, they went out, and cars were tossed around. My sister
my
actually
gosh.
saw bodies, and it was a massive, massive storm.
You told me about this storm, but I didn't hear about like how she saw bodies and stuff.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I
wow.
distinctly remember it was a Superman movie, right? Or I think it was they were watching one of the Christopher Reeves Superman movies. Either 1 or 2, I don't know which one it was, right?
I don't know.
I do remember you telling that story, but I don't, for whatever reason, I kind of blanked it out and didn't realize it was associated with a very devastating tornado outbreak.
Yeah. Oh, that's insane.
That is something I'm gonna look into tonight. I think I'm just gonna
Terrible
Google
Tuesday.
it. All right, back to the movie. So we are we kind of get the calm before the storm, where they regroup at this, I guess, diner, and the movie The Shining is going on in the background, which is a perfect choice to have going on at this outdoor theater here as this F4 tornado looms. We also get the official kind of, Melissa's leaving, like, this is not my thing. I can tell you still love her, or whatever, all that. F4 arrives, everyone has to hide in the shed. As David said, the guy gets hit in the forehead,
With a
which is
hubcap.
weird
Yeah,
detail that it just decided to add.
there's a
in the
couple
Wikipedia plot.
details.
I'm like, why? That doesn't need to be there. Just say the tornado hit the place and move on. What'd y'all think of this F4? It's almost feeling like escalating boss battles at this point, where you had the F1s, the F2s,
I would think
the
that I was a
F3s,
magnet,
the F4s.
like, because everywhere they go, that's the tornadoes are hitting, even
I
when they're
mean-
not chasing them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're still chasing them technically, but yeah, this was the tornado saying, like, you think you can chase me? Well, I'm going to chase you. And it did.
And it did, and it was a big one.
What'd y'all think about this nighttime sequence? I thought this was the scariest one.
It was the scariest because they had The Shining on, and that's a scary movie. So
No, dude. No, there's something
I
about...
do think it really did set up that scene really well, because there are so many moments where there are different things sort of alluding to that storm coming. Like one of them being The Shining is playing, and it's almost coming to the climax of the film. And then Melissa goes to her hotel room where the TV is on, and she's not really listening to what's being said on there, but it's talking about, oh, there's an approaching storm or an approaching tornado coming to like this area where they are. And so I think all of that is kind of building to this moment, as well as you just finished with a very emotional conversation between, what's his name? Bill
and
and
Melissa.
Joe.
Oh, Joe, yeah.
Yeah. So like you've just come off of that, and I really like this scenario just as setting wise, because it's different from, oh, we're out on the road again, there's another tornado. Like they have to hole up in a garage too, like when it does pass over.
Yeah.
And The Shining is still playing in the background, like while the wind is coming in. So yeah, I like the whole setup.
Yeah, and tornadoes are just more scary at night because you can't see them. And when lightning or lights going off kind of illuminate that tornado
Right.
as it's coming in, it's like, oh boy. And you're also, the effects are more convincing because you don't have to, I don't know, put it against a bright as day background or blend it with that, background.
Yep.
Just, it's scarier.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I also did forget to go into the whole breakfast scene, by the way, where I just totally glossed over it, where they go to her aunt's house.
We kind of mentioned it a little, but we didn't go in depth about it.
I just wanted to say I liked that scene. I do think it's a weird choice to have it be her aunt and not her mom, who clearly survived that original tornado, but we never hear a word of her ever again.
Yeah, I guess her mom isn't in the picture anymore. Probably died. I'm assuming.
Just seemed like an odd choice. Like, you could easily just make that the mom.
Yeah.
But, okay.
I don't know.
But yeah, I still like this get-together, and I know I'm backtracking, but I just wanted to... It was a good, like, oh, this is...
You just wanted to bring it up so we could talk about the steak and eggs.
Steak and eggs
Because,
looks so good.
You ever watch Scooby-Doo and other movies, and you look at the food, and you're like, I want to eat what they're eating.
Yeah, the
This
scene
is
I think
one
of in
them.
Scooby-Doo is when they make those sandwiches and then they press them down
Yeah.
in a zombie island and...
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Mo hotter, mo better.
Yeah, exactly.
or like the pizza slices, the cheese is just oozing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But yeah, the steak, they cook the steak and eggs in the same pan. And
As much as I like that, though, I more like this scene because it really... It shows the other life that Bill was in and how he naturally is inserted or it feels at home there. Because
Yeah.
before then, you're not really associating him as much with the group as much as they say that, oh yeah, Bill, he's the extreme. Like, I wasn't believing that, but the way he interacts with them in this scene feels different than any of the other ones before.
Right.
Whereas he's actually settling
Well,
in.
his shirt is unbuttoned
Yeah.
too, and
Yeah.
you can see him kind of like I like this
Loosening up a little bit.
transition where it feels like in the beginning he's almost trying to convince himself that he's like, I'm a real adult now, I'm being responsible, things like that, and then the more he gets back into this world, he starts loosening up, and Melissa sees like a different side of him that she never saw before. Yeah, so you start to believe it.
See,
but
that was an evil
the
Bill,
thing
and I
that
killed
makes
him.
it even more the thing that makes it even more believable is he kind of deflects that comment and says, no, I think there's one that beat me to the top here. And
Yeah.
obviously she does, because
Yeah.
she almost has a death wish sometimes, which
I
is
know,
Joe.
I think she definitely has
Yeah.
a death wish.
I think
not
it's more
totally
just
a
like
death wish,
it's not a
it's-
death wish. She's more like blinded in these big moments
Right.
by like, I don't know, her.
I use death wish to mean she doesn't care if she dies if it means getting to do what she wants to do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I think she will continue to do this even under threat of death.
Yeah, I would say that's more accurate.
But that scene though, where they're at the table and Melissa's like, "Why do you call him the extreme?" And because
he's the extreme. 'Cause he's
the extreme.
Because he is.
So good.
By the way, steak and eggs, like a huge Southern thing. They're like always steak and eggs at every like cafe or
Yeah.
It makes
place
me
you
wanna
go
have some.
to. Yeah.
Oh, we haven't even talked about Carrie Elwes. What do you think about this other team. Carrie Elwes leading the way.
Mega Chad.
Full on, yeah, in honor of Noah. We got Mega Chad energy here.
Meteorologist Mega Chad.
Yeah. And I always loop in my head that line where it's like, unrealized idea. Unrealized.
I also love how it's their project, that they call it Dot, I guess, is such an obvious knockoff of Dorothy.
Yeah.
And how when he pulls out the little what are they called? I guess they're
Probes or whatever
probes
they are,
or
yeah.
sensors or whatever.
Sensors, yeah, sensors.
They're just cubes instead of spheres. Like,
Yep.
I don't see how cubes could be more effective than a sphere, though.
I don't know, just they're different.
They're different.
We didn't copy you. I just love that you have Carrie Elwes, who's almost always British, doing this like Southern accent.
I know.
And he's pulling it off.
I love him in this movie. I don't know how the accent's a little too much.
Yeah.
Like he's putting a little extra on it.
It's hard
Yeah,
to believe
a
he
little
was
bit.
Wesley in Princess Bride.
I know, right?
know.
Isn't that weird?
But it works for this movie, which is already heightened, and I like him as this almost over the top villainous meteorologist type he's all in it for the money. That's literally a line I think in the movie.
Yeah.
He's just in it.
He's
for
just
the
in it for the
money.
money.
The fame and glory,
Yeah.
even though...
I think he's kind of like an obvious antagonist here, where
Yeah.
What I really feel sorry for his driver, by the way, who's in that first tornado. They're like, hey, the driver suggests like, hey, we should help them, and he's just like, keep going. And then that's when Philip Seymour Hoffman jumps in the window and just like, I don't know, says something really derogatory to the driver,
Yep.
and they just drive past him. And then later on, obviously, the driver gets the short end of the stick there in terms of his death.
That was a long stick going through him.
Yeah, true. And even though, and he was the one who was like, maybe we should turn back. Maybe we shouldn't do this. And the movie treats him like crap, even though
Yeah.
he's like seems like a fairly decent.
It's a metaphor
person.
that you should not do things just because people are telling you to. You got to be your own man.
That's the message we get
That's
from that.
it's the whole movie.
Or you're gonna get a telephone pole through your chest.
I mean, you never know. Final Destination's a real documentary.
death to the lukewarm.
All right, so we're through the F4. There's a lot of devastation. By the way, I think it's funny. Again, I'm going to reference how they literally go from F1, F2, F3, F4. They might have skipped an F2 or an F3 there somewhere, but it is just this very predictable escalation of tornadoes. And I guess that's like the natural way to do it. Where,
Right.
Like, how else would you do it?
Well, especially
But-
when there was silence over the crew when Melissa asked about F5.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if it's mentioned like that, it's gonna show up again.
Can
you
you
just
imagine
know
if they
it.
started with an F5 and ended with an F1? It just wouldn't work.
That would be fun. Oh, that wasn't so bad.
Well, we had worse way much.
They like tie themselves to the pipes, and then it just kind of goes by, and there's like,
Like,
there's like a chicken just like pecking on the ground.
The cow walks by.
Oh, the cow. We saw him 100 miles ago. Just floated over here. But they rescue the ant from the collapsing house. Pretty good sequence there as well. And then we're kind of off to the races with the F5 here next. She kind of, the ant tells her to go, like, yeah, this is what you were meant for, yada, yada. And they just magically find that F5 there.
There it is.
Now, the F5, I think a lot of the budget was put into this one. I know it's a daytime tornado, but out of all the daytime sequences we have, I think this is the best looking one. I still contend that the F4 that they did at night is the most effective sequence overall, but
Yeah.
I was still impressed by this final chase. Carrie Elwes' character bites the dust. Driver first impaled pretty brutally.
Truck
You know,
explodes.
Truck explodes. Mad Max stole this scene where the that car gets sucked up into the
Yeah.
sandstorm
Yeah.
and blows up. Did you notice how similar that was?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
was like,
pretty
I feel like
similar.
that's- when I saw Mad Max Fury Road, I was like, I've seen something like that happen before, where a car gets picked up into a swirling mass and just blows up while it's up there. Or no, this one comes down and blows up. I'm getting too into it, but similar. What did y'all think about the final sequence to this movie, the final tornado, and how everything plays out?
The stakes definitely got raised a little more, which was nice because you don't really know where they're gonna go with it. Like, I mean, you've already gone through 3-4 tornadoes already. I don't know, but then getting to see someone finally die, I think that was what kind of put it over the top. You see a truck get flung into the air, and people die, and you're like, oh, okay, so this people can die in this. But I thought it was also funny that they added some form of levity with Joe and Bill running into a barn and just seeing sharp objects everywhere.
Yeah, that was funny.
Maybe
It was
we
like,
don't hide
Who
here.
are these people? Is what they yeah, just like all these sharp objects. swimming
I
below
love it.
Bill. Yeah. What do y'all think about the relationship between these two characters? Are you happy that they're kind of back together? Do you believe this chemistry? Do you think this was the right kind of decision?
Oh, I definitely do. I think, like, they kind of establish it well, where he's more sort of trying to run away from the problem because, you know, obviously Joe hasn't gotten over her trauma and her ambition or whatever to focus on the relationship. But I like that this sort of all comes together in them both having an understanding, you know? It is as bad as I feel for Melissa. Like, weirdly, the movie really lets you off the hook with that one.
Yeah.
She just says, "Oh, you know what? I'm kind of done, and don't worry, because I actually don't feel that bad about it." And you're like, "Oh, okay, well, good."
Well, it's kind
Like-
of wise to have her be a therapist.
Yeah,
type,
it is.
like you can tell that she was working it through in her mind. Like, okay, this is
probably
I can
not.
tell the human behaviors here.
Yeah.
and I'm probably also analyzing myself and how I actually
Right.
feel because of my background and
Yeah,
my
the
studies.
writing's on the wall, kind of
Yeah.
a thing. No, but I'm happy with it because I like both of their characters together more than I liked him with Melissa.
Yeah,
As nice as she is.
they just all three should have got together.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
There you go, Bill.
there you go, Bill. I do think it's funny that the big solution here to make the sensors work is to cut up these Pepsi cans and
Oh,
give them little wings.
That would be so much work and so
I
many
also
cuts.
I'm not a meteorologist and I'm not a storm chaser, but something tells me that wouldn't work. But
Well,
who knows?
I think it would. The funny thing to me is it's an F5 tornado. It didn't really matter if they had wings or not. I think
Did
they were
no
gonna
one
float.
think
I think it would
wings
still
before
suck it
though?
up,
Like,
yeah.
why is that when they designed these? No one like looked at this little ball and was like, "What can make this more aerodynamic? What can make this be picked up by a tornado?"
They're going to be picked up either way. That's what's
Well,
the one weird thing.
The weird part was, like, with as strong as the tornadoes were that we encountered in this movie before, and the fact that they were able to lift a cow, I don't understand why the sensors wouldn't be able to be picked up by that at all. Like,
Yeah.
even if they weren't thrown into the air or whatever.
I would just use like a little T-shirt gun. I'd be like, "All right."
just shoot it.
That does. When you watch the storm chasers, that's what they look like.
They do
they're
use
using.
something similar to like they launch a probe into it via like some air pressurized cannon or something.
Yep.
Honestly, smart idea. Why not do that?
Yeah.
But okay, let's lug this huge thing with sensors out into a road
Cruise
and hope
control
that
your car into the storm.
Also, something I didn't understand about this movie is like there's times where Dorothy gets knocked over, and I'm like, okay, that's game over for the sensors. Are the sensors
Yeah, I
still
know.
not
It's
gonna be like
they just
picked
they
up?
just toss that equipment. Not to mention how expensive that equipment must be.
Oh, it had to be a lot.
Gosh, I mean, I could imagine real storm chasers basically weeping over the lost material in each one of those. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I would find those incredibly important to hold on to.
All right, F5 dissolves happily ever after
Well,
for Bill.
We have the moment where they get the leather straps and strap themselves down
They
to those
do.
lead pipes.
Yeah, and they see inside the heart of the tornado.
The eye.
The eye of the tornado, what have you. It's a very unique view, as the Wikipedia story put it, and I was like, yes, I would
Very-
say so. That's a unique
Very
That
view.
is a unique view.
Well, what was cool to me was the practical effects they went through to get that shot. Do you know what they did for that?
What?
I don't know why Jan DeBont felt like this was necessary. He got an actual turbine engine, like this massive engine, and they had them set up on a rig that rotated sideways, and they blasted air at them from this turbine, and when they're getting lifted off the ground, they actually are.
Oh, wow.
And it's fully practical. Like in the rig, I was like, man, that had to cost a lot of money and a lot of rigging. It was a very fancy setup, and you see this massive like jet engine just like blasting
That's
air.
cool.
Whoa!
This tornado looks great, by the way. We're just looking at it in the background.
Looking at the inside of the tornado kind of reminded me of like you know how you take those water bottles sometimes and you can swish them around and create a little vortex. Like I would do that, and then
That's
I
what
would
it
look
looked like.
I would look through the bottom of it, like through just to see what it would look like, and it had that little tendril down the middle too.
And that's what the eye of the tornado looks like here. So they survive. They're dangling with the leather straps. Any other person would have died in a lot of these tornadoes, but we'll go with it.
Not our main characters.
Yeah, they would have had 500 pieces of debris like impaling their body, but who cares? It's a movie.
Well, Bill Paxton did say that it was really easy to act in this movie because they really were getting pelted and hit with stuff. They're like, I was just kind of trying to survive.
So a lot of those
as I was
reactions were
doing it.
real.
Yeah.
So happily ever after here with Bill and Joe. They're back together. They share a kiss. The team's all happy, and it's off into the sunset. Credits. And I did want to mention, we didn't even throw it out, but Mark Mancina's score in this is so good.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Didn't even touch on it, but it's perfect for this movie. It's a very adventurous, uplifting score that just really accents this movie perfectly, and it makes me miss 90s scores. It's one of those ones where it's like Robin Hood and Titanic and some of these other ones. I can't name names right now completely.
Good Will Hunting.
But there was much more of an attention on just really enjoyable, memorable movie scores that, yes, there's some great scores today. Like, I don't want to discount anyone, like especially what Michael Giacchino's doing. Always interested in what he's got.
All the Zemurian-based soundtracks.
Yeah, but I feel like there's so many 90s scores that just were amazing, and this is one of them. It's one of the ones that you can easily kind of forget about at times, but once you put this movie on and it just hits you, it's like, oh, that's such a...
Iconic.
So good.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think I have anything else. Do y'all have anything else before we move on?
Nope.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. And on the other end, we will get into our brief reviews with numbered scores, get into what critics thought, talk some box office, and then close it out with a little bit of franchise talk. So we'll see y'all then. Welcome back. Let's talk Twister. David, give us that first score there.
Alrighty. First up, we have David. Oh, good handwriting, David. With an 8.
8.
Yeah, we're all on the board with an 8. I couldn't even dock it that many points for CGI because...
Well, why would you?
It's a product of its time, and it's dated, but it works really well, and I never feel like there's not something that's about to kill them at all times.
I'm just going to say, I don't think a movie should ever be docked for CGI if it's ahead of its time for the time.
Yeah, depends.
No, that's like legitimate. I just... What better could they do?
So the whole thing, though, with this is that the only thing that is hard for me is... I don't know. It's ineffable. It's like there's some untangible thing that doesn't feel like a perfect movie. It's a movie that is one I would revisit, but there's something that just like maybe because the scenery is bland a lot of the time. That might be.
I don't think that's it.
I don't know. There's cornfield and then there's small town and cornfield and small town.
Yeah, he would rather have some Yetis in there, maybe
Snow,
some mountains and
need
some snow.
And come on,
Little
this is
change of
America.
scenery.
Where's the football? Right?
I would play football in a
Yeah.
tornado. You throw out 100 yards.
This is, of course, a reference to the fact that David gave The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor a 7 out of 10. Twister is apparently only 1 point better. But
Close. It was close.
yeah, keep going.
Next up.
That was the end.
That was it.
That's all I gotta say about that.
Okay.
Next up is Reese, who decided to change his last second from an 8.0 to an 8.5.
Yeah, I think it's because I gave Contagion an 8.5, and whereas I really like that movie, I think this movie does more for me than that one did. And I just think this movie is relentlessly fun. And to describe what you're talking about, David, where you can't understand why you would give it an 8, I'm going to take my best stab at it.
Please.
It's because there are movies that do more and do better. Like I think this movie is a well executed vision of what it is. But you've seen other movies and how amazing they can be, and this one just doesn't quite reach that level. Even though there's no one scene that you can pinpoint where it's like, oh, that was bad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that. I think it's a very well executed disaster movie. I don't know how much of it I would change. I guess what I would change, if I had to, was maybe take one of these twisters out. Like, I think it's maybe an overabundance of...
One too many twisters and twister.
Yeah, of peril. I think there's maybe too much peril. I like more of the downtime. I want more time with the crew.
Character building.
Because I really like those moments we get where there is that downtime and they get together. I could have used maybe one or two more of those, though. We can take out... I don't think we need the twin sister tornadoes. Sorry, I love the cow scene, but for me, I more like the sequence on the street where Dorothy fails again.
Yeah.
So how many twisters are in there? There's 4. Okay, so I'm conflating the twin sister tornadoes with the one that hits on the road.
Yeah.
Which was like, the sisters were like an F1, the one on the road looked like bigger. Or were they the same? Like, that's what I'm getting mixed up. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is I know it's called Twister, but there were maybe like one too many perilous tornado sequences and not enough of those in-betweens. But other than
5
that...
tornadoes, by the way.
Okay.
There's literally F1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, we can cut one of those. We can cut a 2 or a 3, you know?
Yep.
But other than that, this movie is just undeniably fun. Really great casting. Love Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. It does what I like. It does disaster movie correctly, where it treats its disaster as something real and something to fear, even though this is very heightened and it's very Hollywood. I still am scared of this tornado, whereas I am not scared of the earthquake in San Andreas that kills way more people than this tornado kills. This tornado, I'm pretty sure, only killed 2 people. But I find it infinitely more terrifying than San Andreas.
Nearly a 20-year difference between them, too.
I know. You think they could figure out how to do disaster movies well. But, yeah, this movie nails it. Love so many aspects of it. Love the setting. Love how Oklahoma it is. And, yeah, just love Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. Great movie.
All right, 8.5. Next, we have Irina with an 8 as well.
Yeah, I think I'll bump it up to 8.5 though.
All right.
Because I was dancing between the two.
Yeah, as was I.
I pretty much agree with both of you as far as like I think we're all sort of on the same page where we know this movie is really, really great and there's not really much to dock points off from. And it's kind of hard to specify what it is that doesn't make it a perfect movie. And I hadn't really thought about it the way you had, Reese, but I find I'm almost completely in line with that. There are one too many twisters in Twister, like that, because that almost detracts from how big and impressive the final one is. Because you've sort of been like sitting in a pot that's slowly boiling, you know, where
you're the frog.
yeah, and so you've gotten used to all these twisters, and once the big one comes, you're like, oh yeah, that is big, but you're kind of like, but I've seen tornadoes now. I know what to look for. I think it would have been a little more impactful if there had been an extension of the calm before the storm, and then, like you said, more time with the crew, because you do get to know Bill, you do get to know Joe and Melissa, and somewhat of Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, but everyone else is they're just there for sort of white noise almost.
Yeah.
Like
You
we're
gotta
just
have
there.
a crew.
They're just there for energy almost. I would like to see more downtime, like, I don't know, they play a game, just something
it was
that's
so
more
fun
interactive.
watching them bounce off of each other. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
They had such good kind of popcorn chemistry.
Right.
The whole crew.
Yeah.
You seem like you're leaving a lot of that on the table for
Yeah.
potential.
Or even
Well, and we
going
gotta-
back to their aunts,
Yep.
just afterwards, of like maybe a big one, and coming back there, and then almost a heart-to-heart between her and Bill,
Yeah.
like, because there was a strong connection there, and they don't really bring it up ever again. So I think just something like that would be nice, to the point where once they're in that new location and they find out that the F5 or F4, I think, was heading towards Wakita.
Yeah.
Yeah, F4 was the nighttime tornado, yeah.
Then you feel a little more for the aunt's character. Where
Yeah.
you're like, oh no, not the aunt, because like, I love her, sort of a thing. Like, so
I also
I
think-
would like more of that.
I also think the F5 happens way too quickly after the F4. So you have the nighttime tornado, and then it's pretty
Yeah.
much off to the races to the next one, and it's just kind of there.
I had a
Like, you-
feeling that it was sort of like a traveling storm, and it's like the same. I don't know how exactly tornadoes work, but
Yeah.
if it was the same tornado, but it just escalated into like an F5,
I don't
like
know.
at the point it was an F4, and then it was headed
I
towards.
feel like tornadoes don't last that long, so I think they were tracking a new system. But what I was kind of missing in the F5 sequence is the build up to it.
Right.
Because I wanted to see them maybe a longer driving sequence where they start to see like the clouds in the distance, like boiling. Set this thing up as
Right.
your big bad,
Yeah.
and it is. I mean, it's impressive when it's there on the
Right.
screen, but the build up to it is kind of lacking. Sorry to
Right.
take that away from
No,
you.
no. But I think it is mostly like kind of in the middle act somewhere, leading into the third act of the film, that there's a little too much going on, and like even now I can't really remember the exact sequence of events or which tornado was which intensity. So there's a little information lost in the middle.
Yeah.
But a lot of great scenes at the same time. So, I'm going to leave that with an 8.5.
You know, crunch those numbers, David. It's 8.4, right?
It's 8.3.
That wasn't enough to bump it to 8.4.
8.333.
Oh.
Yeah, if only we had more people.
All right. What is that? What's in? So we got an 8.3 for Twister. What's that? What's it around?
So it is tied at 8.3 with Sicario: Day of the Soldado.
Oh, that feels wrong.
And Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Just above it, we have...
I would put it above both of those. Rise of the Planet of the Apes is really good. I would put it above Sicario for sure. Day of the Soldado.
Well, it is just below at an 8.4. We have Reign of Fire and Hateful Eight. And then just below it at 8.2, we have Dread and Interview with the Vampire.
Okay. I mean, that seems around. Okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think it's just the Sicario. Why do we score that one so
I'm
high?
sorry, but that was a
Sicario
good
2.
movie.
It's a good movie, but it's not
You're
like-
just comparing it to the original Sicario, which was a masterpiece.
Yeah, but Twister's better than Sicario 2.
They're in the same range for me.
No, you're wrong. Okay, moving on. Of course, you're entitled to your wrong opinion.
I don't want to be.
On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 61% with an audience score of 58%.
That's lower than I expected.
On Metacritic, it has a 68 out of 100 and a 7.2 from audiences. And on IMDb, it has a 6.4.
Did you say Metacritic score was higher than IMDb's?
Yeah, it's rare.
That's weird.
I know. That is weird. But it happens once in a blue moon for whatever reason. And 6.4, weirdly, audience is kind of soft on this one, even though I feel like every person I talk to who's seen Twister has fond memories of that movie. So I was kind of surprised to see the IMDb score and the Rotten Tomatoes audience score kind of on the lower end. Though still we have a net positive here, although barely. It is in the fresh on both Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. So still positive, but I could have done with a little higher here. And I think in hindsight, it is in the exact same camp as The Mummy, where at the time had lukewarm reviews. But everyone looks back on it and is like, why why were people mixed on that? This is
Right,
so much
yeah.
fun. And The Mummy's another movie where I wouldn't put it in the perfect category, but it's
It's a fun movie.
super entertaining. Lots of great characters, lots of memorable moments.
Twister or the Mummy, Reese?
That's really tough. I would probably go with the Mummy.
Yeah.
But Twister's like, it's in that same ballpark for me. I really do like Twister a lot. All right, box office. Movie released on May 10th in 1996. Also playing in theaters at the time, The Truth About Cats and Dogs, The Craft, Primal Fear, and The Quest. Got a
Okay.
budget of, and this is contested, so it's between 88 and 92 million. I think it's closer to 92 million because there were like reshoots and the post-production on this movie was very expensive.
That's pretty expensive for back then.
It was, yeah. This is one of the pricier movies. So worldwide, what do we think this movie did? And I only got 2 people guessing. It's you against each you two.
Well, I'll go first if you want, Irina.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go with 200 million.
Worldwide,
Yeah.
Irina.
180.
All right, David, you're closer.
Was it more?
494
Oh,
million.
wow.
That's
okay.
surprising me.
I did not expect that much.
Yeah, movie's a massive hit. And I didn't do inflation, but that's probably around 400 million today's dollars.
That's insane.
so
Because, like, that would mean... I mean, you could easily do a sequel to this one. This one is, like, prepped for a sequel.
Yeah, yet nothing. But yeah, it's 494 million, almost 500 million dollars. Despite the big concerning budget, movie was a massive hit. Apparently, Bill Paxton in an interview had an interaction with Steven Spielberg, and Steven Spielberg, or his first interaction with Steven Spielberg was Spielberg walking up to him and saying like, "Thanks for making me a lot of money." Which that's something I don't normally associate with Spielberg
Yeah, I
being
know,
concerned with,
right?
because
He seems more in it for the craft, I think.
and I think he is, but
I-
I think he knows that I need this to get that.
Right.
that was before
but-
Amblin really took off, or like that was the beginning of Amblin, right?
I think no. I mean, there were big hits like Jurassic Park and all that was Amblin as
Okay,
well.
it all run the same time.
E.T. I mean,
Yeah.
Amblin's been around for a long
Okay,
time and
all
had
right.
plenty of successes. But yeah, massive amount of money, definitely made a profit. You'd think sequel, but this was a different era where not every movie was viewed as if it was successful, make a sequel.
Yeah.
Twister. When I look at Twister in this era, I see that as a solid, just 3-pointer. All right, we're good. Pack it
Yeah,
up.
they
Let's
nailed
make-
it.
Yeah,
We're
let's make the
done.
next thing. We'll just sell 1 million DVDs, VHSs, and let that be that.
Yeah.
But there was talk, even actually recently. First it was around June 2020. A reboot was announced, and this is through Wikipedia that I'm taking it, but I've verified it on other sources, so it's accurate. So a reboot was announced to be in development from the film's international distributor Universal Pictures, with Joseph Kosinski in early negotiations to serve as director, and Frank Marshall and Sarah Scott would serve as producers on the project. Joseph Kosinski, do you know what films he's done?
Oh.
Tron Legacy, the second Tron. Oblivion, that Tom Cruise movie. Only the Brave, that firefighting movie. That's actually very good.
I worked at the movie theater when that
It's a
came out.
very good movie. And most recently, Top Gun Maverick, a new movie that has yet to come out that's been delayed indefinitely. Well, not indefinitely. It's actually finally coming out this year.
It's like they
because of
filmed it. It
COVID.
better come out.
Yeah. That movie looks amazing, by the way.
I'm so excited.
from what I've seen.
I love Top Gun.
So I'm actually pretty optimistic on if he is going to follow through this reboot. I think it could be cool because this guy has a very good mastery of effects-based movies. He's got a good vision. His only issue is with character, although Only the Brave kind of alleviated that for me because he really managed to work really well with those actors and they have a lot of great chemistry. So I could see this. If this reboot is to happen, I'm actually kind of intrigued by it, and I'd love to see another well-executed tornado disaster movie.
Yeah.
That just
Oh,
sounds
man.
great.
How would they do it now, man?
Yeah, how would you cast this? Like, who? If it's a reboot and you're recasting these characters,
Bring back Bill Paxton and Philip Seymour. Oh,
it's a little, it's messed up. Do you have any ideas? What would you want? Like similar actors to these, or would you want it to zig and zag in a completely different direction.
Like a
Zig and
tornado.
zag.
Yeah. I would want something completely new.
Okay.
Maybe like hint at these people like somehow.
I'll say just steer clear of freaking millennial age type people. Like I want older, more seasoned, not old, but just
Yeah.
middle-aged, middle-range actors
No.
who are established.
You know what they have to do though? Is play the whole similar thing to what they did in the beginning of this, where Bill Paxton and Joe are in the beginning or something. Or like, but Bill ends up dying from a tornado, and then his daughter ends up being the main character later.
Just do it. That's what's called the Lego sequel. Just
Yeah.
having the.
I hate those so much.
Well, they're getting really long in the tooth. It was cool at first, like with Force Awakens and
Yeah.
Tron
some of those.
Legacy.
But now every single one of them just revealing the old character, and it's like, oh, remember?
Yeah.
Whoa! Like Ghostbusters Afterlife, that latest one has the remaining the older Ghostbusters in it, and when they show up, it just seems like obvious fan
Pandering,
service.
yeah.
Yeah.
Pandering. Like it just doesn't fit. Like when you can fit them in well and have it make sense, and it doesn't seem, I don't know, pandering as you said. Mm-hmm. Like Blade Runner 2049 does it expertly, where you held off on Harrison Ford until
Yeah.
the end there, and it just makes sense that he would still be kicking around in that universe.
I just get so sick of the same like writing every time when they write in a character that is from a previous movie, and it's always like, oh, the camera is focused on your main character. You hear a voice say something, it sounds familiar. Then like the
turn
camera
around.
shows the person but with their back to the camera, and then they turn around. You're like, oh my god, that's that guy. Every single time.
What's funny
Every
is
time.
Force Awakens did it so well, and then Rise of Skywalker, the third one, just no. Like Harrison Ford comes back as a ghost in that, and it's exactly as you described, Ariana,
Yeah.
where he's behind her, and
Yep.
it's just
Turn around.
I'm so done with that. It's been done to death in so many movies. Anyway, moving on. Actually, Helen Hunt did try to come up with suggestions for a sequel to this film, which, she pitched an idea. Apparently, it got shot down because if they were to do a sequel, they wanted her character to be dead. Which, at first, I was like, why would you do that? But then I kind of imagined the fantasy of what this would, of how that happened, and I picture, since Bill Paxton died,
Yeah.
like they would create some story about them dying together in some sort of tornado
Right.
or some sort of event. I'm like, oh, that's kind of okay. I kind of get on board with that.
Right.
So maybe, I don't want any legacy characters back. Either reboot it or, I don't know, do a sequel with completely different characters, which in that point, why would you do that? Just reboot it. Or,
Right.
I don't know. Y'all have any cool ideas for a sequel, or we're just kind of, we'll wait
I
and see what
pitched
happens?
mine.
I'm still trying to think of who I would want to play a Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt type character if this reboot goes through, and I'm just kind of drawing blanks completely. But maybe that's a conversation we can have once the episode's over and actually think about it instead of wasting time on the mic.
Alexandra Daddario.
Nope, stay stay far away.
That kid who was in Whiplash.
What?
You know, the kid who plays the drums. I think he was
Oh.
in Fantastic Four.
Well, he's okay. Yeah, Brian, Miles Teller.
Yeah, Miles Teller.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure. Give it to him.
And Alexandra Daddario.
All right, well, that wraps up our conversation on Twister, and that's the end of our disaster miniseries. No awards show for this one because we don't have a full enough panel of people to do awards, and it was a shorter miniseries. Might have been fun, but still just doesn't seem like we got all the tools to make that happen here. But it was fun nonetheless. Y'all want to do a quick, instead of doing a awards episode, y'all want to quickly rank the 5 movies we covered from best to worst?
Yeah, sure.
I'll start, so I'll give you some time to think about it. My number 1, Titanic. Number 2, Twister. Number 3, Contagion. Number 4, 2012. And sorry, producer, number 5, San Andreas.
I
know how much
think
you love that movie.
that's exactly my list too.
Yeah?
Honestly, yeah, I don't think I would change that either.
I'd swap San Andreas in 2012.
I like 2012 more. San Andreas is kind of like, meh.
Man.
2012, at least, I'm kind of excited about what's going to happen next. and it's throwing all these different things at you, and
Yeah.
I'm a little more scared about.
Yeah, there are
The-
moments that feel more threatening than
Yeah.
others. Yeah.
Like, my problem with San Andreas, as much fun as it is at times, is it's The Rock, and I never feel any tension whatsoever. It's just, oh, this is a Rock movie. Everyone's gonna and this maybe comes with the context of knowing that The Rock almost has it written in his contract that he will not star in a movie with a bad ending.
Right.
And I know most disaster movies end positively, but he's the guy who's basically says nobody can die. Everyone
Yeah.
has to be happy. We want the audiences leaving our theater smiling.
I think that 2012 also had more distinct scenarios and setups for the different disasters, whereas San Andreas kind of felt like just a lot of the same. And
Yeah.
I don't really remember the sequence of things. It's
Yeah.
just a lot of buildings kind of crumbling, and then there was a big wave.
Yep.
Yeah.
It all kind of blends together. Producer, do you have a ranking of the 5?
I do, actually.
Let's hear it.
I kind of see similarities between Titanic and Twister and what was the third one? And Contagion. In that it seems like those 3 movies exaggerated things, but they got the science or the history pretty close to correct.
Right.
The other 2, 2012 and San Andreas, were just extrapolations and huge exaggerations of what might happen, and disaster. So I would rank them lower. And of those 3, I think the best movie was Titanic. The second best might be Twister. The third would be Contagion, and then 2012 and San Andreas. I mean, that would be my rank.
That's my exact. That's so
Hey.
you're in line with us 3, and David only is the one to switch San Andreas in 2012.
Yeah, I like The Rock.
Nothing wrong with that. And the thing is, I have those very close,
It's
mind
close.
you. Like, it is very close. But yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Let's put a bow on this mini-series and call it a night. Our next person in line for mini-series is Noah. He's got a couple of great ideas for mini-series. We're waiting on a solidification of that, though. But we're kind of nearing a decision, and I can hint it is between 2 different miniseries here. It will either be movies focused on a tournament or movies that are focused on a to the death confrontation. So that's kind of what we're between here. Looking forward to it, though, and it's a mini series where those 2 kind of go hand in hand, but we're trying to kind of nail down specifically what the series will be and all the films that will be covered. But I can tell you it will be between those 2. All right. With that said, anything else, guys? Are we done?
I think we're good.
All right. Thus ends our episode. Goodbye, you guys.